Hi everybody, I'm Stacey. I have been practicing yoga for about 12 years. It came into my life, and I've been with this studio since the very beginning, and it's been a sanctuary for me. I guess now we can refer to life as pre-pandemic. Before the pandemic, I came to practice at least, I believe, like 3 to 5 times a week, depending on what my work schedule allowed. I went on like this for years, almost taking the freedom of practicing in community for granted, being able to say hello to my fellow yogis, to have Bobby and Austin as an ever-presence in my life. Whenever I was stressed, whenever life was blissful, I was able to remain like a neutrality in life from my yoga practice. And then I remember this virus happening in Wuhan, and I remember following it. And we would discuss it sometimes in the studio. No one in the States knew what was happening. And as it started to become apparent that it was coming to the States, I personally was like, okay, I've kind of been prepping for this. I felt a neutrality. I had a low anxiety level in the beginning because I think it's from my yoga practice. It's from my connection with my spirit and the universe. And then the shutdown happened. I remember the day that Broadway shut down. I was at work in Midtown. I work for a family, and I help raise a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. And we had a chef. And I remember calling the chef while I was on the street with the 4-year-old. And I said, there's something happening. I could feel the kinetic energy changing. And then all of a sudden I got an alert on my phone. And then I heard a woman next to me be like, they shut down Broadway. And it's like the city fell quiet and then burst into an anxious overflow of people running for supplies. I remember 2 days before that telling all of my friends that they should start stocking up on supplies because I had a feeling something was going to be happening. The shutdown happened, people rushed for food, then the studio shut down, the city shut down. I had an external focus that kept anxiety levels very low. I took care of the family that I work for. I sent them out to a place that was safe because they had the opportunity to do that. I decided to stay behind and quarantine for the first 2 weeks. So I continued my daily practice of yoga. Not for a live stream, because we didn't have that then. Not from backlog classes, because honestly, I forgot about it. I was kind of in this survival mode. I just had an internal practice of practicing 3 to 5 times a day. I knew the sequences. I could hear Austin in my mind when I would practice at home. What did change though was my yoga practice. I had to be completely responsible for it. I had to remember all of the teachings that I was given. I had to live it and be it, and it was difficult. I have a cat, she's difficult. She bites my ankles. She gets in the way. It's noisy in my apartment. There's distractions everywhere. Anxiety started to creep in. I could feel it, but in little tiny ways. Slight frustrations, less patience with my job, traveling. And then I believe a little while later, things started to loosen up a bit and the studio opened again. But we were trying to work out how to do yoga. Bobby and Austin did a fantastic job trying to figure out what the CDC recommendations were, what Jersey City was doing, so they could stay open. Also, they had to deal with the financial loss of not being open. And I know how my rent is just to live. I can't imagine what their rent is. I was fortunate that I have an unlimited package, so in my heart I knew that I had at least been supporting the studio, because that was a thought for me. It's a place I love, it's a sanctuary. It's one of the only places I feel at home. I live a life where I'm fairly equanimous, I enjoy people, but I live in an area that's full of transience. I don't get to have a lot of solid relationships in my life, and this was a very solid relationship for me. I wanted to make sure they were still here when they reopened. I started coming. It wasn't very packed. People were nervous. You could tell our usual hugging and gregarious spirit for yoga had changed, but some of us were still coming. And then I had to start traveling to LA, and I made the choice to start practicing at home again because of CDC requirements, the safety of my fellow yoga students talking to Austin and Bobby about what I was doing in my personal life. So I started doing live stream, which was it's such a great asset for people who are nervous about coming in and to keep your practice up. I did that for almost 3 months, and I remembered the feeling I had when I wasn't coming to the studio. The tiny little twinges of annoyance started coming in, being at work, being a little short-tempered, my body feeling a little tight. Just this feeling of anxiety starting to bubble, even though I was practicing at home, dealing with my cat, who, by the way, only is nice during yoga when Austin practices. Something about him. She just lays on the mat. Otherwise, she's biting my ankles and knocking me out of downward dog. I started to get a pain in my gallbladder a little while ago. And I realized all the anxiety, all the frustration of everything happening, being normal in my life, but not, because I work, started to take a toll on my body. And I had a long meditation with myself. And what was missing? My daily community. I hadn't realized that being in community, what it did for the well-being of this physical body that I attempt to not be attached to. But when you're in pain and discomfort, you're experiencing anxiety, you really start to feel it inside when you don't have other humans to make contact with. We live in a world now where we don't see anyone. We see eyes. We're not hugging people that we typically would. And I realized my community was missing. So I found a mask that I really enjoyed that's very breathable. I'll make sure I give Bobby the information for the mask, because that was a bit of a deterrent. My ego was in my way. I was like, I don't want to wear a mask. And I was like, I'm going to wear a mask. So I did. And that feeling I had, that anxiety I had when I walked back into my home away from home, my community, it went away completely. Because I have a place with like-minded people, people who were seeking and trying to have a dialogue with themselves in the universe. And I'm so grateful that they're still here. And how clean the air purifiers, everything Bobby and Austin have been doing to make sure that this is a safe place to practice. I feel no anxiety practicing here. It is clean and impeccable. And I'm hoping that other students in my community, I'll be seeing the friendly faces that I used to see all the time before the pandemic started. I'm hoping that maybe someone hears me and has a resonation in their heart. I think one of the keys when we have anxiety, especially our community that has their yoga practice, is to get inside yourself and remember, you're not your mind, you're not your body, you're not your feelings and your emotions. You remember, I am. Tap in to where the anxiety is coming from. For me, some people I've talked to, it ties into their idea of death and mortality. For someone else, it might be something else. I think if you can have an internal dialogue to know what the root is of that anxiety, you can watch it instead of it driving you. And I would suggest to find a mask that feels good and to come in person and try it once. Make a commitment to just come one time and have a dialogue. Tell your community how you're feeling. It's okay to have those feelings and to know that if we all talk to each other, we can support each other and we can all get through this. And we'll be able to help each other practice, have community, and your anxiety level may peak when you walk in. You might feel nerves in a class when someone clears their throat. But the spaces that have been taped out are within CDC guidelines. The air purifiers, you could talk to Austin and Bobby, you could practice next to one of the purifiers. I also have, you can get a personal ion air purifier from $50 to $100. There's one called Wayne I use, W-E-I-N. I use it for travel on airplanes. Creates a 3-foot bubble of clean air around you. I've always used it during flu season. You could place that on your mat. Could help. There's resources you can use and technology you can use to get back in your community and lower those anxiety levels. And just try it one time and see how you feel. Maybe you'll be like, it's a little too much now, but a little plant a seed and then you'll come back. Or you'll be like, no, I can come back into my community. The energy in class, the energy of being together with your community and other yogis practicing takes your practice level up, even if you're not trying, because we're together. Another thing is when I came back in person and we all omed together, I cried. I forgot what that feeling was like to be with other human beings. And that's why I was like, that's why I listened to my heart and I was like, this is what it was. This is what I was missing. So yes, I was a little lazy at home. It was better than not doing it, but it was not the same as being in person.